I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's talk about Germany, the German economy, and specifically highlight an article by Alistair Crook on the Strategic Culture Foundation website, which has the title, Germany Stalls and Europe Craters. We did a video a couple of days ago on Macron and the fact that Macron is sinking France, and at the same time, he is sinking Europe. And this article confirms many of the things that we said. We mentioned Germany as well in that video.
Yeah.
And it takes us a little deeper into what is causing Germany to fall apart and what essentially will cause the European Union to fall apart. So, Alexander, what is your take on Germany?
Well, the thing to understand about Germany is that Germany has had for a very long time this extraordinarily strong, very competitive, very well organized manufacturing base. That manufacturing base has been depending heavily on exports. It's a very, very well organized, very well run export machine. It has depended on two things to keep it going. Firstly, it's depended upon a very good business climate within Germany itself, relative low burdens on German businesses. And secondly, it's also dependent, it's become increasingly dependent upon good trading conditions with the rest of the world. There's been a third factor that's helped Germany a lot in the last couple of years, and I want to talk a bit about that, which has been the Eurozone, because the effect of the Eurozone is that it's created a situation where the euro has been undervalued for Germany, making German exports more competitive, whilst at the same time locking other EU countries, other Eurozone countries, into a relationship with Germany where they cannot themselves devalue, therefore turning them into captive markets for German industry. Never a healthy situation, and not perhaps in the long term a sustainable one, but one which undoubtedly benefited Germany in the short term. Now, what has happened over the last 10 years is that Germany has had a Chancellor, Angela Merkel, who inherited this very strong position. And she has steadily allowed it to be whittled away. Firstly, because she has operated a laissez-faire policy within Germany, which has resulted in burdens on German businesses steadily mounting. So we've had policies, for example, to close down all Germany's nuclear power industry, for example, which leaves Germany very short of potential energy. We've seen a steady uptick in welfare spending. We've seen lots of little things which have been accumulating and creating problems. And at the same time, we've seen German infrastructure neglected because Merkel very unwisely, very foolishly forced on Germany or agreed to Germany having a balanced budget rule. Sometimes governments must run deficits, even if only for a short time. It's how long they do so. But because Germany's locked into a balanced budget or a budget surplus, it hasn't been able to keep its infrastructure running well. At the same time, when other burdens on German industry have been increasing. At the same time, as all this has been going on, Merkel has done two other things. Firstly, she has managed to antagonize two very important countries. One is Russia, against which she has imposed sanctions. The other is the United States, where she has a terrible relationship with Donald Trump. So the result is that neither of these countries looks like the good export destination for German goods that it might have done. She has also managed to antagonize a third country, or potentially so, which is Britain. Britain voted to leave the euro the EU, instead of Merkel negotiating with the British a proper and sustainable Brexit, which would have given Britain a free trade agreement with the EU, which would have allowed German exports to continue to go to Britain. And Britain is, by the way, I think Germany's single biggest export market, at least it is for its car industry. What has happened is we're now drifting into a no-deal situation. So that export market for German manufacturing is now in jeopardy. And of course, in the meantime, that competitive edge that Germany locked into itself through the euro with other peripheral countries in the Eurozone has been eroding as these countries find themselves in semi-permanent recession and therefore unable to buy in more German goods. So all the factors that made Germany such a tremendous export success are wearing out. Infrastructure in Germany is rotting. And Germany is slowly losing, not so slowly, is rapidly losing its markets. At the centre of it all, there is this Chancellor who has been presiding over, very complacently, an economy where problems have been steadily getting worse. And she doesn't seem to have any idea or any interest, actually, in how to address these problems. And she doesn't seem to be prepared to step aside and let people different to herself come in and start addressing these problems on Germany's behalf. The person that she's trying to install as her successor is essentially someone who reflects her views. In other words, who will perpetuate this economic stagnation, which is rapidly evolving into a crisis, which Merkel herself has created and has come to embody.
Yeah, her successor is like a Merkel 2.0, just like a much worse clone of the original.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and she Absolutely. Is, and Merkel, can you describe Merkel as, I would describe her as a lame duck chancellor who's not ready to give up power just yet. So she's kind of a lame duck, but at the same time, she just doesn't want to give up the reins of power.
Years and years ago, Merkel was described to me as somebody who loves power and loves being chancellor, and who's also very treacherous. That was how she was described to me. And I think her record shows that this is so. She is more interested in having power than in using it, which is a very strange personality, but that's been very much the characteristic of how Merkel has been chancellor in Germany for so long. And the problem is that, as you rightly said, she's not prepared to step aside because she likes being chancellor too much. So even though, properly speaking, she should have resigned directly after the last parliamentary elections, which brought a bad result for her and which showed that both she and her grand coalition of the CDU and CSU and SPD were unpopular. What she has done instead is cling on and reconstitute that same coalition, which is both failing to address Germany's problems and which is failing electorally. So she is making, in Germany, a bad situation worse.
Yeah, and she pissed off the UK. And to make matters even worse, it seems that she's pretty much handing over the European Union to Macron. And that is a complete disaster. Alexander, bear with me 1 minute. I'm going to read you a fairly long passage from Alistair Cook's article from Strategic Culture Foundation. And it touches upon Brexit and it touches upon France in relation to Merkel. Speaking in the German parliament, Alice Weidel, the AfD leader, tore into Chancellor Merkel for her and Brussels' botched handling of Brexit, for which she, Merkel, bears some responsibility. Weidel pointed out that, quote, the UK is the second biggest economy in Europe, as big as the 19 smallest EU members combined. From an economic perspective, the EU is shrinking from 27 member states to 9. In the face of such an enormous event, the EU reaction verges on a pathological denial of reality. They should recall that German prosperity and jobs are at stake here. It is clearly in Germany's interest that trade and investment continue unhindered. But out of blind loyalty, you, Merkel, follow France, which wants to deny Britain access to the single market. Yes, you, Merkel, are considering not allowing Britain access to the European Economic Area because France does not want it. That would be too much. Too much free trade, too much fresh air in the markets. France, with its failed industrial policy, serves as the new blueprint for the EU. Alexander, what do you make of that from the AfD leader?
Well, it was actually excoriating denunciation of Merkel. It happened, by the way, in March of this year, in the run-up to the original Brexit day, which was supposed to be the 29th of March. Can I remind everybody of the sort of dynamic of this process? Because as we've discussed many times on our videos, our programs, when we've talked about Brexit, the hardliner, the person who really wants to drive Britain out of the EU, is Emmanuel Macron. And the reason Macron wants Britain out of the EU is because he is committed to this policy of more Europe. He wants more integration. He wants more centralization. He wants Brussels and Paris ultimately, but the whole EU structure taking more and more of the decisions away from the nation state.
EU army?
The EU army, he wants the whole package, and he wants to go much further than this. And the British have historically always resisted this impulse towards total EU centralization and EU integration. And that's why Macron wants the British out. Now, what Alice Weidel is saying is that Merkel has allowed Macron to run away with this process because it is not in Germany's interests for Europe to become incredibly centralized in this way, to have a sort of semi-planned economy loaded with the kind of burdens that the French economy has, imposed upon it through a more centralized EU structure. But by allowing Macron to run with this process and to drive the British out of the EU by getting impossible conditions to be imposed upon Britain as part of a Brexit deal, the result is that the country that will ultimately pay the big price is Germany, and that Germany is being sacrificed by Merkel to an EU ideal, which is Macron's, and which is ultimately destructive for Germany and for Europe. Now, we've just, as you correctly say, done a video, a program on Macron, which I advise everybody to listen to and watch, because, of course, we analyse there the kind of vision for the EU that Macron has. And we see with Alice Wiedel's comments the pushback against this within Germany, still the biggest and most powerful country in the EU. But we also see from Alice Weidel this comment that it's Merkel who has allowed this to happen. Merkel who has created this situation where the uber integrationists led by Macron are in the driving seat and where the British are being pushed away.
A truly terrible Chancellor. Alexander, to make matters worse, Deutsche Bank is not on solid footing. Things are going really, really bad for Deutsche Bank, which is the largest, an integral part of the German economy, the largest bank in Germany. What is the latest on Deutsche Bank?
Well, as I understand it, again, it's been papered over a little, but as I said, it ticks away. The problems come back every few weeks, and we're going to see more problems very soon. I have no doubt about this. The reason Deutsche Bank is able to keep ticking along is because it's quietly getting an awful lot of support from the European Central Bank. Everybody knows it, but it's essentially a zombie bank. It's not functioning properly any longer as a bank should. The danger is that this zombification of Deutsche Bank is going to spread to the rest of the German economy, which is the heartland of the European economy. And that's what Alice Weidel is saying. And you could see how Merkel is allowing it to happen.
That is one big zombie. Deutsche Bank, that is massive.
It's a massive zombie. It is, absolutely. It's not just a zombie, it's a vampire bank because it's sucking in the vitality from the German banking system because it's a huge integral part of the German banking system. And that ultimately is undermining Germany. And what undermines Germany in the end undermines Europe. But we talked before in our program about Macron about how all these projects are in the end killing the host. And here we have another example. And that's the point in these very eloquent comments that Alice Weidel was saying in the Bundestag, in the German parliament. And I predict that we will hear more and more people in Germany talking that way before very long. I read a most interesting article a few weeks ago in the Financial Times. Unfortunately, it's behind a paywall. By a German commentator who writes regularly for the Financial Times called Wolfgang Munchau. And he said that anti-EU sentiment in Germany is now roughly where it was in Britain in the mid-1990s. So it's not yet reached that point of critical mass, but it's growing. And the reason it's growing is because of the way in which the structure, the EU structure, is increasingly being seen by more and more people in Germany as being a burden on Germany rather than an asset. And we see that there are politicians like Alice Weidel of the AfD who are able to do what Nigel Farage was already doing all those years ago in Britain and articulate those things. She's a very different person from Nigel Farage. She speaks in a much more Germanic way, much more analytical and methodical way. But her points were spot on.
Yeah, Germany sucked the life out of all the smaller EU states and all the periphery.
Yes.
And now, from your analysis, it can't go as effectively towards China. It can't go as effectively towards the US. It's completely cut off the UK. Where does it turn?
Well, indeed, where does it turn? It needs a new chancellor because, a chancellor, Angela Merkel, who has managed to annoy Russia, annoy America, and annoy Britain all at the same time, and who has a difficult relationship with China at the moment because the Chinese are also, for all kinds of other reasons, less than happy with her, is not an asset for Germany. She is a massive liability. Now, the extraordinary thing to me is how difficult it's proved for the German political establishment to grasp this fact. Logically, she should have been pushed out long ago.
Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below. Click on the notifications bell to make sure you get notifications every time we push out a new video. And of course, you can get an audio copy of this video. Follow us on iTunes and on Soundcloud as well. And you can donate to the Duran on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribe Star. Your donations really help keep this channel up and running And another thing that helps keep this channel up and running is when you go to the Duran shop and you purchase some merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, v-necks, stickers, and of course our famous magic mugs, which will improve your geopolitical IQ by at least 1 point all the way up to 100 points.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely 100 points, Alex. I say that unequivocally. How else could we provide the kind of analysis that we do on this program? This is my mug today. That's your mug today with stiff and double-headed eagles. Mine is the Duran eagle, which points to the east and the west. Yours is the Russian state's emblem, as on Vladimir Putin's own mugs. As he showed at the G20 summit a few weeks ago. Vladimir Putin, of course, and Angela Merkel are the two great adversaries in Europe. They have great respect for each other, and they also, as is very well known, dislike each other intensely. And he doesn't trust her, and she doesn't like him. But, they're like a cat and a dog in a bag. They've had to work with each other for all that time. But I predict that Putin will be there long after Merkel is gone, still drinking from mugs with a double-headed eagle that you have. Perhaps not, however, quite as good as our mugs, which are perfect porcelain, 15 ounces. I'm drinking green tea. I've actually spilt some, by the way, because I've been waving it around during our program, but that's a sign of what a elegant and strong and light mug this is to hold. It's a fantastic mug, and you can buy all sorts of other fantastic things in our shop, not just mugs, but also lovely shirts like this one, long double sleeved 100% cotton shirt, beautifully dyed with our own double-headed eagle there. There's polo neck shirts, there's all kinds of shirts, there's stickers, there's hats, there's wonderful things. The feedback we're getting is tremendous. Help the Duran, go to our shop, help yourself. Alex will tell you how.
Yeah, the polo shirts are fabulous too. I love the polo shirts.
Oh, I think they're amazing. They're amazing. They are so stylish. As I said, I wore them at the most resplendent occasions, and I've looked incredibly cool and elegant wearing them, if I say so myself.
All right, go to the Duran shop, guys. The link is in the description box down below. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Till next time, everybody. Take care.